On this week's Hot List, historic apology. The Dutch Prime Minister says his country is sorry for post-World War II violence. Is it enough? Rest in peace, a final wish by a transgender artist to be buried as a woman. Why didn't that happen? And Magic Man, how one Indonesian in Japan pulled pandemic work out of his hat. Hello and welcome. This is Hot Indonesia. I'm Dalton Tanonaka in Jakarta. Let's get to it. My co-hosts, Sandrina Malakiano, Deputy CEO of Polmark Indonesia from her home in South Tangerang, and Millie Lukito, CEO of the Mobiliati Group on the road for the last week in Vancouver, Canada. Hot topic number one, historic apology. It came 73 years after conflict ended. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte apologized to Indonesia this week for, quote, extreme violence from 1945 to 1949. During that period, an estimated 100,000 Indonesians died as the Netherlands tried to retain control of the colony it had ruled since the early 1800s. Now, some 5,300 Dutch were also killed in the violence, and there was some pushback by right-wing Dutch politicians after the government report was released. But Millie, this has been a sore spot for years, an open wound for Indonesia, correct?
My only answer to this question is, hello, where have you been for the past 73 years? Did you have to wait for 73 years to say, I'm sorry, we are sorry for all the atrocities and the war crimes that has happened to our country? And is it enough? Okay, several years ago, the monarch actually has also apologized, but the government has only apologized this year on the 73rd anniversary of the end of that atrocity. And where is justice? There is an international body in this world that actually can always put people to justice, put a country to justice. And I'm really waiting for the government of the Dutch government to have to face all the consequences of what their previous governments have done to our country.
Yeah, you're mentioning, you're referring to legal cases and claims of redress against the government. The relationship between colony and master is always complicated. Of course, many Indonesians here still speak Dutch, the older generation. They went to school there, and everyone likes to visit the Netherlands. Sandrina, was this apology long overdue in your opinion?
Dalton, colonialism is a very sensitive issue for both sides, namely for the colonized country as well as the colonizer. So both sides must be really careful when bringing up this issue in their international diplomacy. In this context, often we see such long overdue confessions of wrongdoings and public apologies. Usually this is related to the complexity of the issue. There are three kinds of processes that usually take place. First of all, political diplomacy. A public apology from former colonizer countries usually comes after a very long and tiring process of international diplomacy done by former colonized countries. Secondly, as a result of formal fights through the International Court of Justice. This is also a very long and complicated process. And third, it could also be the result of demands from scientific or academic communities based on credible research on history of the country. These kinds of research, of course, takes a long time also. So in this particular case we are discussing right now, the scenario used is the third one, thorough or in-depth research on the history of Dutch colonialism in Indonesia during the period surrounding the independence of Indonesia, 1945 to 1949. This verifies the existence of human rights violation acts. There are solid facts that the Dutch government can't deny. That's why they conveyed this public apology.
I didn't see much reaction to the PM's apology here. I guess maybe people either they forget or they're jaded about it. You know, Millie, you mentioned this, that there have been previous statements of regret by, for example, the king of the Netherlands, Willem-Alexander, 2 years ago. You know, maybe this doesn't matter much to the younger generation here. But Millie, I'm sure the older generation remembers people like your late mom.
Yes. Unfortunately, Indonesians tend to easily forget. And history should be made so that the young generations, that they are not, no condemnation needed, but they should understand the price that our forefathers and foremothers paid to get our independence. They should know the struggle and the difficulties it was at that time to be free, you know. And this is something that our government, in my opinion, should be able to communicate to the young generations so that history, this type of history, does not repeat or does not happen again. And then the next question is, what is next? After the apology, what is next? Would the government, the Dutch government, have plans or a restoration program with Indonesia? Any economic collaboration, education collaboration? What is next? So that
there is obviously relations between both countries, very good relations, diplomatic at the minimum, and also cultural and other exchanges. But you're right, legal cases still exist. Indonesians seeking redress for the loss of their loved ones. So Sandrina, I guess until these are settled, conflict in the courts will continue.
The possibility is there, Dalton, the continuation of cases or conflicts in courts. But I believe the Indonesian government could work on talks with wider frames or perspectives. You see, after King Willem-Alexander publicly apologized to Indonesia during his visit here in March 2020, the Dutch government offered a 5,000 euro or $5,600 compensation to the children of Indonesian people executed during the 1945-1949 War of Independence. And last week, Prime Minister Mark Rutte also emphasized that the offer is still valid. But beyond that, to add to what Millie said, as proof of their regret and sincere apologies, actually there are at least two things that both countries could do together. Number one, build a museum of colonialism in Indonesia. Our country doesn't have an integrated and comprehensive museum on colonialism. The Dutch government could prove their words by taking responsibility in building this museum. Let's use Nelson Mandela's famous credo, forgive but not forget, as the principle of this reconciliation. And number two, increase cooperation in the fields of education, especially by providing scholarships in a massive scale to support higher education for Indonesian students, undergraduates, postgraduate scholarships in the Netherlands. By doing so, we change our focus from post-independence war resentment or hatred into beneficial synergy and collaboration between both countries.
Yeah, very good idea, Sandrina. And of course, the museum idea, you know, I'm surprised we don't have one here, but controversy this past month in the Netherlands when an exhibit opened and there was some conflict between wording. Both of you ladies know about that, and so it remains a sensitive topic. Okay, Hot Indo will continue shortly with Rest in Peace. Why couldn't this woman be buried as she wanted?